A very strange and oddly unique change has come to Marvel Snap. Find out what's going on as I hereby invite everyone to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So, we have some weird ones that are hitting the bingo card this particular week. So, as of now, these are the new patches to come out in Marvel Snap. These are currently live and running. There are currently 3 nerfs and 5 buffs. So the first one that I gotta look at, which is kind of weird, is Taskmaster. Taskmaster got changed from a 5-drop to a 6-drop. Other than that, he stays exactly the same. When looking through the notes on this, because I actually do read the notes on this, they said there was something with cards that are coming out that would make Taskmaster too broken as a 5. Would love to have known what that was. If it's something that is in the future, way far in the future, or something that is near in the future. This card was always a card that I liked. Never really played it as a 5-drop, honestly. Always played it as a 6-drop. The common thing that I would do would be Shuri on 4, Red Skull on 5, and Taskmaster on 6. And even when Taskmaster would get hit by Iceman, I would go, yeah, I'm okay playing this on 6. So it's not a big feels bad card per se, but it's also interesting because this is partially what I said about Hulkling, because this card has now moved from the 5-drop to the 6-drop. This is possibly one of the worst cards to get off Emperor Hulkling right now, because with how Taskmaster works, if Emperor Hulkling becomes Taskmaster, he won't stay the 11. He'll become whatever power your last card was. So that's kind of interesting that this is coming out the same week as Hulkling is. Not the end of the world, but just kind of if you would have known that Taskmaster would have been one of the things that you could get off of it, you might have rethought Hulkling, and this is kind of why you gotta wait until after the patch notes to see what's coming on before you buy cards. Another interesting one that I don't think anybody had on their bingo card was Beast. Beast got changed from a 2-2 back to a 3-5, which is where he was for the very long time. But instead of him giving the permanent power reduction, which is what he used to do, he still only gets it for 1 turn. I really don't like where this is at this point. It's so hard on turn 3 to waste a turn, for lack of a better word, to get cards back in hand that you then have to play next turn. The shifting of this is not great, but also there are some better things coming from Bounce this upcoming season, so I'm not super upset about how this is happening. Just weird that they brought him back up but left him with his old power, or his worst power, I should say, his worst text line, I should say. Last nerf that we have for this particular patch is another interesting one, which is Copycat. Copycat still is a 3-5. However, now she will only become a copy of the last card in your opponent's deck, not remove the information off of it. I really liked how Copycat was, honestly. The fact that when I become a Shang-Chi and know the fact that they didn't have a Shang-Chi anymore was super great information. I didn't care that I was the Shang-Chi. There were so many times where I could have not played Copycat. There were so many times I didn't play Copycat at all. I was just happy to know that they didn't have the Shang-Chi, they didn't have the Living Tribunal, they didn't have the Loki, or whatever card they didn't have. Now, it really is more of a do you want to be that card rather than do you want to nerf that card. There's almost a part of me that would have rather her had the opposite way around, where she just negated the effect instead of becoming the effect and just was a 3/5. I get why they made this change. It feels bad to have a card in your hand that basically you can't play. Second Dinner is really good about trying to make cards that are you can play cards. They don't like cards that make it so you can't play. This is one of the few cards that made it so you couldn't play a card, period, no matter what you did. I almost wish there was something they could do where it's like she still got to negate the effect. The whole thing was the odds were you weren't drawing it, but with so many ways to shuffle around your deck, rock shuffle your deck, location shuffle your deck, there are things that shuffle it, and then when you draw the card, just isn't going great. But I like Copycat, I really did. I didn't think she was that oppressive. I was never upset when somebody played Copycat against me. I really saw what card I got nicked by the Copycat. I really understood when Copycat was used and that if it wasn't played. So this one kind of hurts me more than I really want to give it credit to, mostly because I just got this really nice Copycat variant off of a just free break in the shop. Now for some buffs. The first buff, and you can say this is a nerf to Loki, but it's a buff to Loki. I don't care what anybody says. Loki got changed from a 3/5 to a 2/2. Every time they try to fix Loki, they just make him worse, in my opinion. And by worse, I mean that better to a certain degree. There are so many people who are just going to turn 1 Quinjet, turn 2 Loki, and just giggle. If you get Loki in your open hand pretty much at all, if you put Loki in your deck and you get him in your open hand, you might as well snap. There's a good chance you're winning that game. And this even makes him more of a necessary evil in Airsham decks. Considering that on turn 1 you can now play him and just switch out your deck. The only card that this basically puts a hit on is maybe Wicca, because I'm not sure if you can make this work with Wicca, but I have to see. But now, if you get Loki, you can do Loki on 1, Cassandra Nova on 2, Agent Coulson on 3, and then you can do your Wicca on 4, and that's just ridiculous. Now you gotta really get rid of Loki and all that pull, but I don't like where the Loki is going. This makes it so that it's just basically spin the wheel and hope that you get something good. Now he doesn't get to draw anymore, but if you get him on the 2, it's great. There is nothing to do with him later on in the game. Each turn he becomes a little bit less good, but that's not the end of the world. Basically, if you're not getting him by maybe 4, you might not play him, but that's his downfall at this point, and that's it. Next buff that we have up is we have Cannonball. Cannonball got 1 extra point thrown back on it, went from a 5/7 to a 5/8. Everything else stayed exactly the same. Ever since Professor X really got changed, and you can't block off that lane, it's kind of hard to make the rock happen. One of the original ideas behind Cannonball was to have him do the rock regardless, and then if you couldn't get out of the way, then you'd get destroyed. It's kind of weird how this started a weird chain reaction, because for the longest time it was Professor X Cannonball. I'm not sure 5/8 is a good stat line anymore. That's kind of the weird point about it. And without getting the rock, it's kind of basically at the same point as Stegron, which is kind of sad. next up on the buff list, we have Atuma. Now, this is a really nice buff. I'm not even going to lie about this one. Atuma is still a 410. Nothing has changed about that one. But instead of needing to do the chi stands alone trick, which it's had to do forever, it now can have other cards in its lane. What's going to happen is at the end of every turn, it's going to basically do what Warrior Falls does. It's going to check your location, look for the lowest card, and destroy it. Now, there is some really nice, interesting stuff around that, where you can do stuff like X23 to get the energy, you can do Wolverine to get the power, you can even do Sabretooth and keep throwing Sabretooth in this each and every turn if you really feel like going that kind of crazy run. Also, this is good for stuff like if you're doing the Hood, put the Hood in here. The Hood dies, you get the Atuma, you get the Demon. That's really good on this. Now, if he's completely alone, he won't destroy himself. He'll only destroy if other things are in that lane. And he won't destroy any of your opponent's stuff. But that's a way better thing than this was. This card was not seen play. This was the 1-4-10 that basically wasn't seen play at all. The only other cards that are really still in this kind of chi stands alone category are Namor and Orca, and I don't know who plays either of those cards, but at least now this becomes a good destroy card. This is a destroy enabler. Throw anything with less than 10 power in this lane and it'll get destroyed. Where before, you would throw anything in this lane, period, and you'd lose the 10 power. That's a huge difference to have basically, for lack of a better word, an altar of death on your side of the field. Last but not least is going to be the Destroyer. Destroyer got changed from a 616 to a 614, so it lost 2 points of powers. But instead of destroying everything now, which is kind of weird because it is the Destroyer, it'll now destroy everything except for the cards in the lane that you put it in, for your side. It always destroyed your side, never destroyed your opponent's side, just to make sure that everybody's clear about that. It's interesting. I think it could have kept the 16 and still done this trick. I'm not sure this is that good of a buff to it. Usually when you're playing Destroyer, you're playing it to destroy everything. You're doing stuff like Nimrod, you're doing stuff like X23. I don't know what you wanted to protect with this, but one of the things they talked about was like to protect death. It's like if you're protecting death, if you're putting this in the death lane, the death lane is supposed to win you no matter what. And if death is small enough, you play the Destroyer first, the death second. It's a weird move. It's not a bad move. It's definitely a buff to this card. I'm just wondering how good it is to win a lane, to have the lane where this isn't destroyed be the lane that you play this in, because theoretically the reason you're playing Destroyer is to win the lane you're playing it in, not to win the other two lanes. That's why I usually put like armor, you put like you used to put like Professor X in this, or you put out stuff like Nova so that everything else can get bumped, or you put out stuff like X23 or Wolverine, or even the Nimrods. It's weird because the lane that you're trying to win with Destroyer has never been the lane where you want stuff to survive. I don't know why you'd want to survive the lane where you're putting the Destroyer. There is kind of a weird idea that I had, but I'm not sure how viable it is, where somehow you get Onslaught and you get Living Tribunal and you get Destroyer and you get Iron Man all in the same lane, so it doesn't destroy any of those, and you have a really huge card like that. But to a certain degree, you might just play Red Skull at that point and just not care that you're losing that 2 points, because that's so just weird. So anyways, those are the buffs and the changes that have come out of the game. They're currently live. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.